It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio today. Zen McCarskey with the Arizona Game and Fish Department back with us today to talk about several more wild animals that live in the state of Arizona. And you've got a couple of them here with us. We've got Bob and the Beav. Yeah. Bobcat and a beaver. Both of which look much bigger than I thought they were, especially the beaver. He's quite impressive.
I think you initially said the bobcat was smaller than what you thought.
No, because I've seen those. Now that's where I want to start off with, the bobcat. We were talking about animals adapting to their surroundings. This guy, Kyle Benedict in the news department, was saying that his folks have seen one running around Peoria. My folks live in the village of Oak Creek, and we see them in the village of Oak Creek all the time. So it's not an animal that you just necessarily see out in the forest or the woods.
No, they can adapt to life amongst humans. But it's important people understand, let's not get them adapted to being around humans. I mean, much like with any other animals, they can carry disease. And they'll also, of course, see some house pets as potential dinner.
I was going to ask you that. Small pets are probably...
haze them out. If you see them and you want to get a picture, grab a picture, but don't make them feel comfortable around the house.
How do you shoo them off?
Usually if you just wave your hands at them, make some noise, usually they're just going to run off. If you start seeing abnormal behavior, I mean, they start hanging around the house right in open sight during the heat of day, you might want to get in touch with a Game and Fish office because you might be talking about a sick bobcat at that point in time.
We've seen that in the past here in the Verde Valley, most definitely. Main habitat and food that they
can occur throughout Arizona. At one point, they're a great success story when we start talking about modern wildlife management. Okay. And that they are now, at one point in time, they were really, their fur was quite valuable. And we'll talk about the beaver in a minute.
Right, yeah.
But they are now the most common wildcat in all of North America.
Oh, okay.
So they occur just about everywhere. But, something a lot of people may not know is when we start talking about the bobcat is how did the bobcat get its name?
There we go. Tell me about that.
See that little tail on the end over there?
It's just a bob.
It's a bobbed tail.
Okay.
And that's how they ended up with the name bobcat. So, real pretty cat, but once again, we look at it and you're thinking, well, it's not very big. It's not a lot bigger than your ordinary house cat.
So you look at the paws.
The biggest difference about them is they are designed for life in the wild. That little animal next to you can bring down a deer.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it would not be their first choice. Cottontails, jackrabbits, things like that obviously are much more of a mainstay. But if they had to, they're capable of it. The problem, of course, being when you're a true carnivore, and you're strictly a meat eater, such as a bobcat is, if you have a failed hunt, every failed hunt brings you closer to going really, really hungry.
Right.
So they want to take stuff that is a little more within their range.
Not to mention, I mean, if they suffer injury, they'll avoid trying to injury.
Yeah, they don't. They
could injure them.
Yeah, other animals they can, but. Like I said, they're just a very efficient predatory animal. And you and I were talking a little bit ago about the difference between some of these skulls that we have out on the table. And I like to be clear that, when we start seeing, these pelts and these skulls, most of these animals were killed by cars.
Okay.
And, we talked in some other segments before that the number one killer of vertebrate animals in this nation are vehicles.
Vehicles.
Over 1 million vertebrate animals every day die in vehicle collisions.
Across the U.S.?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's a big number.
It is a big number. But, instead of the bobcat skull, I'm sorry, because it's bigger and maybe show up a little better, we were talking about it being a true carnivore. An animal that needs meat to eat, to survive. Not to eat, to survive. Well, when we open up a skull like this, and you look at the jawline, you don't see what kind of teeth?
Molars. You pointed this out before we started the show, and I was really surprised by this, but there's no molars in that mountain lion's skull.
Yeah, this animal is designed to hunt, kill, rip, tear, shred, swallow. Anybody who has a house cat has probably seen that house cat throw up. And provided you're feeding it dry food or something that, wet food's not going to work the same way. But if you've seen it throw up, the food comes out much like it went down.
Right.
Why? They don't spend a lot of time chewing their food. They're not designed that way. And if you look at the bobcat skull, and again, that's why I use the mountain lion first, you see, again, no molars.
No molars in there.
And so you find a skull out in the wild and you look at the jawline, you may not be able to identify that animal specifically, but
this one's interesting. Now, that's the raccoon. Okay, that's the raccoon now in your left hand.
Yeah, and, well, before we go there, and I'll put those up together, one other important factor when we start talking about animals and what they are is where the eyes are looking. This animal's eyes are set straight forward. They're looking at you.
Right.
Hey, Paul.
You look pretty tasty.
You don't want this animal looking at you, Paul. So its eyes are looking straight forward, which allows this animal to judge distance. And if I'm a hunter, that's a real important factor. So their eyes are set straight forward, no molars. Now, this is kind of interesting because they do look very similar.
I think it's really interesting about the two.
But I already showed you the bobcat. No molars. But if we take this animal here, this is an omnivore. And you can see it's killing, it's ripping, it's tearing, shredding teeth here, but it's got some molars in the back of the jawline over here. So this animal will chew its food, and it's capable of eating vegetation as well as meat.
That's the raccoon.
This is a raccoon. I'm sorry. And if you want, we can show people the
we've got the raccoon pelt.
And I'm sure people are very familiar with a raccoon. They've got the
It's the bandit.
raccoon eyes.
It's the bandit that you find rummaged into the garbage can in your dog food kennel outside and all that good stuff. They just they eat what they can get their hands on. Literally get their hands on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always thought that was interesting about the raccoon too, is that they are so. When you see videos of raccoons eating, they're it's like they've got hands. They're literally using hands.
Well, they have essentially thumbs.
Right. It's just amazing how they reach in there and they just sit there and they eat like they've got hands. It's amazing. What is the difference can you talk about this, the difference between a bobcat and a lynx? Because they're similar but not.
Well, we don't have lynx in Arizona.
Okay.
And a lot of people see the bobcat, so I don't know a lot about the lynx, to be perfectly honest with you. The bobcat has those little tufts. You can see right on top of the ears. It's got these little tufts. It's got the short, stubby tail. The lynx is very highly tied, I know, to the snowshoe hare.
Okay.
So, where you find snowshoe hare, that's in which we don't have. So we don't have the lynx, but a lot of people confuse the bobcat with the lynx because they do look quite a bit alike, actually. So it does get confused often. Believe it or not, it's actually sometimes gets confused with a mountain lion. But when we start talking about a lion and a lion's tail, obviously, a lion's tail is considerably different.
Just the word lion says size to me.
So it's nothing similar. But they do get confused periodically just because they're two wild cats.
Let's take a break.
All right.
All right. Zim McCarskey with the Arizona Game and Fish Department in studio today. We've just got a barrage of different animal things we're talking about. When we come back, then we'll talk about the beaver. Stick around, Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
And we're out.
You got plans?
You bet. $50 million Americans struggle with hunger, but we can do something about it.
Excuse me. What's going on?
Dinner. Please join me in helping put food on their tables. Together, we can feed America.
You guys keep going. I'm gonna get the plate. Wait!
Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
I'm a teacher. Let me tell you what I make. I make learning a privilege, not a chore. And frustration, a tool, not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy and giving up impossible. I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought and unconventional methods common. I'm a teacher. I make more.
those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
Welcome back to Countywide. Zen McCarskey with the Arizona Game and Fish Department in studio today. We've talked about the bobcat, a little bit of mountain lion. We've got some information about skulls, molars, and all that good stuff. The beaver.
You left out the raccoon.
The raccoon. I apologize, Mr. Raccoon. Now, the beaver, we talked about fur at the beginning. You talked about how soft this one's fur is, but then you mentioned when we got in the show later, we talk about the beaver and its fur. And it was important back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, of course, it's not so anymore. But back in the day, there was a point in history when that beaver's pelt was so valuable. In parts of this country, it was actually considered a form of currency. And you could kind of see why. I mean, you look at the beaver and you see all these big long hairs on the outside. And I want to be real careful about this, and we're not going to be able to see it on TV, but you can see it. But if you pull the long hairs to the side, you see the shorter hairs underneath. You and I have talked many times about wildlife adaptations, and this animal is distinctly adapted for life in the water. Think about it during the wintertime. It gets cold. Your mom used to always tell you to stay warm. What do? You layer up.
You layer up, right.
Well, the beaver's layered up naturally. He's got big long hairs on the outside and small short hairs down underneath. Not to mention in the wild, their fur is a little bit oily, and it helps keep that water from getting on them. And of course, they're best known for chewing on wood, building dams, things like that. There was a study done, and I was reading about this, and I wish I could remember more about it, but they wanted to see how sensitive the beaver was to the sound of flowing water.
Oh, okay.
So they took a recording of flowing water and put a speaker on top of a beaver dam and played that sound. Well, the beavers came out and dammed up the speaker.
Oh, really?
They were very, very sensitive to the sound. They thought there was a leak within their dam.
We want a pool of water. We don't want a running water.
Right. So,
I'll be darned.
And, you talk about adaptations again. They have another really good adaptation. And I'm going to show you on the skull. You can see it right here with their eyes. That their eyes are right here. Here are the eye sockets over here. And that's an important adaptation because when we look at we all have a spinal column. It's right back here for us. And our spinal column allows us to walk upright. So their spinal column of the beaver's here. And again, its eye sockets are here telling you this animal doesn't move around like this. It moves around like this. And its eyes are near the top of its head. Another great adaptation. You and I go swimming and we want to swim as fast as we can. Our heads are going to be down. Can we see potential danger on the shoreline?
No.
But the beaver can.
The beaver can.
It can swim with his eyes up above the waterline.
Just a small portion of his head has to be above water.
So if he sees potential danger, he can go underwater, come up in his dam, and be in safety. So that's a great adaptation for a beaver, not to mention their engineering exploits are phenomenal.
What's their average size? Because I'm looking at it, when you brought this to the door today, I was looking at it going, oh my gosh, that is a much bigger animal than I thought. And then we started talking about the river otters, which we see coming past the station on a regular basis. And I've been fishing in that river and had them pop up in front of me, and I know I've been extremely surprised by the size of that animal.
Well, the beaver has a distinction in the United States. It is a member of the rodent family, if you didn't know. And they are the largest rodent throughout the United States is the beaver, and they can reach weights over 60 pounds.
That's amazing. 60 pounds. Web feet?
Web feet, another adaptation for life in the water. So wildlife adaptations are really wonderful, and we talked about the predatory teeth. When we start talking about an animal that feeds strictly on vegetation, it's all molars back here. It's all molars so that they can chew on that food. And we talk about all these adaptations, like a jackrabbit can hit speeds of 35 miles an hour, Paul. 35, I mean, they can move. They also have really good sense of hearing, and good sense of sight, decent sense of smell. And I always like to tell people, humans, what sets us apart is our brains, our ability to walk upright and use tools. That sets us apart. But if we take all that away and look at ourselves as strictly from a physical point of view.
Okay, all right, okay, I can do that.
From a wildlife perspective, our eyesight is not very good.
No.
Our sense of smell, pretty bad, actually. Our sense of hearing is not very good. And so when you get right down to it, Paul, from strictly physically, we're more defenseless than a jackrabbit.
So basically the bobcat could take us down. Right? Right?
So you know, I think it's important for people to understand, because I hear a lot of people, I think people sell wildlife short. I hear them all the time, you know, that's a defenseless this, or that's a defenseless that. There's no such thing. All wildlife have defenses, all of them. You know, some people talk to me about birds, you know, songbirds. They fly. That's a great defense in and of itself. So defenses exist for all wildlife. And of course, I did one class, and I asked the kids, name me a defenseless animal. One young student stood up and said, a T-Rex. So that one, it's like, well,
a T-Rex.
They do not lie in Arizona, and they do have big teeth, so we can leave it at that.
Now, back to the beaver, Arizona, they're here?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's why I brought the beaver down here.
Do they prefer any area of the state?
The Verde River is a real good spot. We do have some beavers throughout the Verde. Again, they are another conservation success story. Their populations have rebounded very, very nicely throughout the United States. Many people see them as a pest. They can create some troubles, but they also create some really, really good riparian areas for other wildlife to use. So they do serve a very integral part out in the wild.
They all do. They all mix together and work with each other and against each other. So they're all necessary. Let's take another break. Okay?
All right, why not?
Yeah, Arizona Game and Fish's Zen McCarskey in studio today. I'm Paul David. We'll take a quick 2-minute break and be right back.
Witnessed him have 2 heart attacks in ICU. He went through seizures.
We'd much rather have Aaron like this than dead. A lot of parents don't have that luxury.
He can't talk. He can't walk. This is a condition Aaron will live with for the rest of his life because he abused prescription pills.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got a few minutes left of the program. Zen McCarskey from the Arizona Game and Fish Department in studio today. We're going to talk about the wild animal that we all see all the time, and it is the wile-e coyote.
Wile-e coyote.
We all know the coyote. I mean, how could you not know the coyote? He's everywhere.
Coyotes are They're pretty amazing. One of the first things we probably should say is that I'm going to move this here. Paul, this is a full-size coyote. Okay, they're not waist high on an adult.
No, like a medium-sized dog.
I get a lot of people tell me, I've seen a coyote, it was this big. You know, when we see wildlife, often perception is altered because we're seeing them either below us or above us. We're not really seeing, you know. So it's not to say you don't think that it was that big. It just wasn't that big. A really good-sized coyote in Arizona is going to weigh about 30 pounds. They're not very big. They're not very tall. They disappear very quickly in the shrub.
They're so intelligent.
They're pretty smart. They're adaptable and they learn.
They talk to each other.
So they are carnivorous animals, although you can make an argument, some I'm sure would, that they're omnivorous as well, because they do have some molars in the back. They will eat vegetation, but you know the thing is they're hunters. They want to hunt, they want to kill, they're going to eat. But they have so many adaptations. We don't. Maybe we should set aside a show one time and just talk about coyotes.
We will.
In that their numbers. This animal knows how. They're going to be here long before we're gone. And there was a point in time in U.S. history, I think it was 1915 to 1945, where about 3 million coyotes were killed. It was an effort, just let's get rid of the coyotes. And then in 1945, a survey determined that there were just as many coyotes as before. So what happens is the coyotes essentially just have more babies in times of persecution. So the more they're persecuted, the more babies they have, and they maintain their population. And there's so many other adaptations when we start talking about Yellowstone and the reintroduction of the wolf and what happened to the coyotes. Well, initially their population went down. The coyote adapted. It left the wolf down in the basin areas, the flatter areas, and it moved up into the hills.
They are very intelligent. We've got about a minute left, but they are extremely intelligent. I think everyone's heard that eerie yip, yip, yip when they talk to each other. Now, I've always been under the impression that when you hear that, that means somebody in that pack has made a kill?
Well, they can hunt in a pack, which we consider, I believe, to be 3 or more animals to be a pack. I don't see them in a pack very often. I usually see 1. Sometimes 2. I've seen 6 together.
Sometimes you hear 2, 3, 4, it sounds like, going off at the same time, like communicating
with each other. And whether or not they've made a kill, I just don't know enough about that, in regards to say, yeah, they've made a kill, this and that. I mean, it's possible. I would assume they communicate for many other reasons, though, other than that. But this is another animal that is very apt to take your house pets. You start seeing them around, don't encourage that behavior. Bring food inside. The only sure way to protect your animals is not to put them out by themselves. Keep them in, keep their food in specifically. Don't encourage this animal to stay around because they can even, we all think a big dog. Our big dog, I got a dog 80 pounds, are safe. Well, they can lure that dog out of your yard and then group up and go after it. So we need to be careful.
Let's do that. We'll have you come back and we'll focus on the coyote.
Okay.
One time. We've got several shows already planned for 2015 with Zen here and then other people he's brought up, so it'd be great. Again, thank you so much for,
thanks for having us.
Coming in all the way from Kingman. I really appreciate your time and bringing in all these great props.
And I'm not leaving him here for you.
No, I know. I sure would love to have that bobcat, though. He's awesome. So that's today's Countywide. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you again next time.